Here's where it says that the researchers the researchers favor the authoritarian approach, believing modern laid-back attitudes may account for the increase in bladder problems in young children. And I disagree because I don't think we should have an authoritarian approach. I don't think we should have an authoritarian approach when raising our kids at all. Here's another teacher that denied washroom breaks, causing the child to soil himself. Here is the LA Times article talking about teachers often left to deal with pupils' medical needs, and it explains that they were to look after the medical needs of students. I don't agree that teachers should have to deal with the medical needs of students. I agree that we should have a school nurse. This is another example of people denied their education because they wear diapers. Apparently, this person, if you read at the bottom here, it says that they're denied education because he wears diapers. So, because they don't want to do their job, they are not allowing people to have an education. That's unacceptable. This article is from 2005. Again, it says that there's kids coming to school in diapers. We're not saying that you should change diapers, that the teachers should change diapers. We're saying that there should be a school nurse there that helps with that, as people shouldn't be denied an education because they're in a diaper. Same goes with the hospitals. If you don't want to be a nurse, if you're scared to change diapers, you're scared of poop and pee, then maybe you shouldn't be a nurse. Then they even made schools move because of the children not being toilet trained. This is 1988. Yeah, 1988. And if you look, it says that there are students that are still in diapers. I'm quite positive that the circumcision process causes incontinence. We use a lot of paper products, which is why we need to switch to hemp paper to save our trees. This kind of mentality is also nasty. I don't agree with women saying that men are more difficult than girls and all that. I don't agree with that at all. More examples of teachers doing that, and it causes incontinence. They're denying washroom breaks, and you have to hold your urine and poop in, and it causes incontinence later on in life. They did this when I was going to school. They wouldn't let us use the washroom, so a lot of the time it caused incontinence issues to get worse, or if you didn't even have incontinence, you later had it because of this.
Bottom line is, I've been saying this for a while, parental responsibility should be the bedrock of a child and their upbringing, not like an afterthought, right?
That is absolutely right, and that parental responsibility is the foundation of the kind of partnership that we need between families and schools to make the best for children.
What are parents doing wrong? Because you've been into, I mean, particularly primary schools, I think people might have seen the headlines.
Yeah, kids coming in nappies, it says here.
For years, Piers Morgan, that's been going on for years, decades.
Since we started
it's not
talking
new.
About this, saying it's absolutely true, and they're seeing it in their school. The messages I got just over this weekend. It really is the case.
How old are these kids in nappies?
4, 5, sometimes.
Unbelievable. What are these parents doing?
It's really difficult to understand. I think modern nappies are just so comfortable.
I don't agree. No, they're not.
Child in pull-ups.
No, I don't agree with that. Don't blame the pull-ups.
Actually, it's laziness bordering on negligence.
It's not even laziness. It's the fact that you can't force a child to be potty trained.
It's a refusal to accept your
Or even an incontinent person to be potty trained. You can't force people to do that.
I think that's the bottom line. Yes, it is.
What are teachers saying about it? I mean, I remember when my children started school that you couldn't go into reception unless you were fully toilet.
That's a lie too. It's a lie.
To parents, I'm sorry if you're still.
There's never been a policy in place, and there shouldn't be. Nobody should be denied an education because they're in a diaper.
Who've got a genuine physical need, and schools want to be inclusive. They absolutely don't want a child not to start school at
That's right. It shouldn't be ever be that way. It should never be that you discriminate against somebody because they're in a diaper.
Wanting to be helpful, to parents just finding it very convenient and saying, oh, the school will deal with it, therefore...
It shouldn't be the school that deals with it. It should be health officials that get involved.
In this country, one of the worst records of it amongst young people.
You guys can't even get family doctors to people.
what again? It comes down to parents just presumably plonking their
3
kids
years
in
for a
front of
family
an
doctor.
iPad on the sofa and
Maybe
feeding
that's the
them
reason why some of
terrible
you
food,
have
isn't it?
problems
I
with
mean,
incontinence too.
Getting food right,
No
eating,
doctor.
eating sensibly in a world that is stuffed with temptation isn't easy.
Exercise.
A
Nobody
world
is
full
saying
of
parenting
chemical
is an easy
food,
job, but at
a
the same
world
time,
full of
making sure the
fluoridated
child
water,
eats
a
right,
world
making
full
sure
of
they get
vaccines
exercise.
that are full of
And
no
most of that
good
happens outside school.
stuff in the
Children spend a few
vaccines,
hours in school,
full of pills that
and the
are full of
research
side
meetings show
effects,
that
you know,
even the difference
controlling
between the
washroom
schools
breaks
that
at school, telling you
deliver the
can't use the
most on this front
washroom.
and the
With that's
schools that deliver
withholding
less
all your
doesn't
urine
matter.
and
Found
poop.
kids
Okay,
who
can I
were
just
coming in,
on
hang
the
on,
food? Hang on.
packed lunches with leftover fast food, cold chips or chicken nuggets.
I went to
That's the
school
most
sometimes,
incredible.
Piers,
Child cruelty
and
today.
and
That
I
is
had
pretty
to go
grim
out for
when
lunch
a child
because
has a lunchbox
you know
like that.
Schools have
we
told
we
me
had
in
money
lots
to
of
go out for
cases
lunch
not
sometimes,
doing enough
but there was
to
times where I had
give them,
nothing.
and then parents
There's
and
people that
children
go
are
without
forced to
anything.
ruin this rubbish.
I think schools have really responded over the last few years. I think a decade ago we were in a different place on school years. I think a lot of the campaign work that's been done really has changed things. Most of the schools I go into are proud of their lunchtime and make an effort.
We didn't even have a
to
cafeteria.
eat what the children are eating.
Look
We
at the
ate in a
reaction to that.
classroom.
This is so typical,
In the
isn't it,
classroom,
of modern
Piers.
Britain.
In the
So
classroom, we ate in a
parents
classroom.
find,
We didn't even have a
Michelle
cafeteria where they made
Doyle
food at the
Wild,
school.
right? Acting, she was formerly the Parent Teacher Association. So the vast majority of parents are doing a terrific job. I'm not sure that berating them will lead to positive
It doesn't.
things for
It doesn't. It will
Otherwise,
never work.
how
You've been
dare
doing
you?
that for so many
Any
years,
negative
for decades and
remarks
decades,
about the fact
berating
kids are coming in
parents
lunchboxes
and
full of
children
congealed
and saying
bacon.
it's
I hope
the
those
kids'
parents
fault,
will
it's the
support
parents'
them,
fault, it's the
because they're
diaper's
obviously not
fault.
able to make the
It's
right
everybody
decisions
else's
about
fault.
what's in
No,
the
it's
food.
not.
What about
They're not able
shaming
to
them?
think about
What about
toilet
shaming
training.
them?
No, you don't
What are you
shame
doing to your
people.
kids?
You don't shame
Get them
people and you
toilet
don't
trained.
use shame
Give them
diapers
proper
and shame.
lunches, right?
That's retarded.
Stop abrogating
That's the
your
retarded
time
thing
as a
about it.
parent.
Is that you?
Is it shaming them, or is it
The
actually giving them
retardedness
proper
of
support, saying,
society
"Do you know
is
what,
the
this
problem.
not
If you want to say
nutritious lunch.
anything, it's the
Your child
retardedness
should be
of
toilet trained
society.
Why would you need to be told that day-old chips in a congealed pot? It's
Because
not a
for some
nutritious lunch?
families who are struggling to even put, any kind
Because
of food
you
on the
made the
table, then
fucking
maybe they're doing the
expensive
best they can
food,
to make
all
sure
the
their child
fucking
has
good
something to
food
eat.
has
I
been
don't think that's
expensive,
what
and
you're
you've made all the
talking
shit
about.
food
I'm not talking
cheap.
about
So now everybody has health problems.
In the poorest countries in the world, throughout history, this is a job that the parents have done. I don't believe that human beings have suddenly got less capable,
They got
less
lazier.
No, no,
competent.
I don't even agree with the lazy part of it. I think it's society as a whole is mentally retarded.
We've got to make sure that all parents take their responsibility. Otherwise, schools can't do their job
What
properly.
about Charlotte's point about education about nutrition and also about finances when people are under a lot of pressure and don't feel that they can...
Some people go to school, I did, without diapers on. I have incontinence issues, and I struggle with potty training in my lifetime. And sometimes we didn't have money for diapers, and so I went to school without diapers. And sometimes I shit my pants and piss my pants. So you want to go down that road? We should talk about those issues too. How people can't afford diapers, and they go to school and soil themselves at school, or piss themselves at school in a puddle, and they're left like that because they have no diaper.
To take the meal that's provided by the schools. So
Why are we finding excuses?
Yeah.
Seriously. Why don't we just say, when it all
Address
went
the
wrong,
issues
when they banned egg
in
and cheese,
society instead of denying them,
I think
Piers.
honestly, the moment that happened, I knew it was a slippery slope to the beginning of the end of the world. Because the message it sent was, you can't be competitive anymore. Every kid now has to win.
Why does
Every
that have anything to do with school lunches?
Because
Or
it's
potty?
about
Every
the
kid should
attitude
win.
of
What are you
mind
talking
that
about,
actually,
Piers?
If we want to be a competitive country,
We don't need to be a competitive country. We need to be an inclusive country.
Is feckless, lazy parents in most cases. Not all.
Inclusive parents. We should have inclusive parents, inclusive society, inclusive. Everything should be inclusive, included. Everybody should be included, not discluded, not separated, not divided. England has a problem, and it's mentally retarded society that it has a problem with. The whole society there is mentally retarded. And it causes the whole globe to be mentally retarded too, because you guys don't address the real issues, and you guys want to continue down the old colonial road. You don't want to switch to hemp. You don't want to do things the right way. You would rather stay the old way, the old authoritarian way of beating your wife and kids, and doing it the old authoritarian way. Right, Piers Morgan? Right, Piers Morgan? The old authoritarian way is what you like. I don't like that way. I don't want to go that way. I want to go forward. I don't want to go down the old colonial road of the royals.
toilet training and so on. That's more time for teaching, more time for the things that they
It
really need
can't
to be doing.
Except that
proper-
really,
If you work 4 jobs, how are you supposed to do all that?
But
Period.
schools' budgets really are the big problem, aren't they? And teachers.
It doesn't, the school budgets, they get enough money. They go on trips. They're going on trips and to Toronto and to all these banquets and having parties, the teachers and the heads of the school board. What are you talking
You can
about?
have 1,000 more teachers. It won't help people toilet
is
train
in
their
charge
kids.
of Ofsted, and Ofsted's job
Ofsted's
is to
crooked.
inspect
They're all
schools, not to
crooked.
inspect parents.
Yes, but
I
actually
went
what
to the
Ofsted
school
found is
board
that parents
and I had
can't
problems because I was getting bullied and I had incontinence issues. I wore diapers to school. I had diapers on and I still wear diapers because of incontinence issues. And the school board denied me my education, said they couldn't do anything about anything, and to go away basically. So I quit school in grade 9.
At what point you say, no, you know what? This is wrong. You are bad parents. Get better. Prepare your
Because
kids better
I
for
think
school.
that the biggest problem facing
Yeah.
school is probably budgets rather than
No, it's not
This
budgets.
is about
Again, you defended
schools
them again.
not having to do things that they shouldn't be doing.
If anything, it's the accountability of where all the budget money's going
to do
to.
their job
Well,
really
look,
well.
Because a lot of the money's being
I'm
squandered
glad
and
Randall's
taken.
saying this.
When did
It
I
will-
defend bad parenting, by the way?
You've been defending it all morning.
And when did I defend
You
it?
literally have defended them at every step of the
No,
way.
I said.
You guys all have been sitting there blaming
What about school?
parenting.
Yeah.
What about this?
That doesn't
What
mean I'm
about that?
defending bad
Huh?
parenting.
What about they can't afford not to bring congealed chips into school? Really?
That's Charlotte's
I
point.
said that.
Well,
But
then you're
sometimes,
just bad then.
I'm just saying sometimes there are reasons behind it. And not every parent knows what it takes to be a good parent.
They don't
Sometimes
have kids.
There's a lot of
Sometimes you need
people
to be
having
shown the
kids
way
and they
and
shouldn't
given
have kids
support.
You
too.
need to be told your kid shouldn't be wearing nappies at the age of 5 to school, or you need to be told you shouldn't take a congealed load of chips from the day before.
But
in your
Piers,
lunchbox.
you cannot
should
force
be
a child to be potty
Don't
trained.
have children. Quite straightforward. Totally behind you with this. Good on you for doing it. There'll be lots of. I can bet you most of the viewers agree with me on this.
I can tell you most
Whatever.
people tweeting agree with me.
Yeah, because the vast majority of parents do put the hours in,
Yeah.
do toilet train their kids.
You
do
can't
give them
say that.
nutritious food, and they're sick and tired, I think, of actually other people just getting away with it.
Yeah.
And putting an extra
It's not a
strain on the
competition,
school.
And a
Piers.
lot of teachers are very fed up with having to do stuff that
I
they
don't
shouldn't
blame
have to
them.
do.
It's not the teacher's job.
Right.
It's a
I'm sure
nurse's
you're right.
job and parents' job.
Let's
But it's
not
also
let
not.
the
You
funding
can't
off the
force
hook
your child to
Yeah.
be
when it
potty
comes to
trained.
schools and
It's
classrooms
abuse
and
when you do
books
that.
and resources and
Get tough.
Talk about this toilet training now, because last week a new poll by teachers revealed more children than ever. They start primary school still wearing nappies. Some teachers are claiming that parents are too busy to teach these youngsters basic skills in life, like putting on their own coat,
Just
for
getting
instance.
dressed and undressed for PE, how to sit and eat at a table.
Put on ties, tie their shoelaces, all
Yeah,
that.
so the question, of course, is whose job is it to teach these social skills and development? Is it solely down to parents, or do schools actually have a part to play?
It's
with with
society.
respect to Reception. Well, one woman who believes that parents are to blame. for
I
failing
don't
our
think
children's
that
parenting
parents are to
expert,
blame.
that's Liz
I don't.
Fraser. And then there's Catherine Burble Singh. She's a head teacher. She believes schools have an enormous part to play. Welcome to you both. I have to say, I kind of sit on the fence on this one. I hate sitting on the fence, but I
Why?
kind
How
of
could you
think,
sit on the
because
fence?
I do think, yes, of course you should teach your children how to eat properly, get dressed.
Yeah,
by the
everybody
time they go to
does.
School, but the fact of life is, a lot of parents don't. I'm not
They're
sure it's the
working.
majority,
They
but
can't.
A lot of parents don't. So therefore, it's not the child's fault. Someone's got to help them. So school is the next place,
Yeah.
I suppose. Isn't it, Catherine?
Well, I think so. I mean, of course, parents should be doing what's right by their children, but unfortunately there are some families, sometimes because they don't know what to do, sometimes they are too busy, sometimes they have 3, 4 jobs, they several children, it can be difficult. And I do think that schools have a part to play in this. They can bring a coordinated approach and involve families and help to support them in doing the right thing by their children.
How much experience did you see of this when in your school?
Well, of course, I was at secondary level, so nappies weren't an issue. But you can imagine if they are in nappies at age 5, then what happens to those children later?
I disagree. I
71%
think
of
that
teachers
there always
polled
has been
working with 3 to
issues,
5-year-olds.
and I know that from myself, that there always been it has
Some
been
of them
issues
had to
with
put
people
on
in diapers
canned workshops
all through
to help
public
with
school.
toilet training.
So
Yes.
to say that there
I'm
hasn't
astonished to be
been
sitting next to a
is a
school
lie.
head teacher who's using things like too busy, don't know what to do, where we're talking about teaching a child how to go to the toilet by the age of 4 or 5. There are so many
But
issues
you
in this
can't
one. As you said,
force
Ruth, I
it.
mean,
You
we do
cannot
understand that many parents
force
aren't
a
doing this, and
child
therefore
to be
someone's got to
potty
pick up
trained if they
this
don't,
gap
if
in
they
the
can't
education.
control their
But, I mean,
fluids.
how have we possibly
If they
got to
can't
the point where
control their
parenting,
bowel
the
or
role,
bladder
the job of
movements.
parenting has become
then you cannot
devalued
force that.
to such an extent that there are that many parents, as we're hearing in this report, who have so little pride in themselves and so little sense of duty to do these basic things for their children.
It's not just you just do it. You just do it. The child has to learn, and also the child has to be able to learn. And if they can't control their bladder or bowel, then they can't learn. They cannot do
It may
it.
not be what we all want to hear, but at least things will progress and change if
Well, I mean, of
schools
course, I agree with what Liz is saying. Having said that, I mean, at secondary school level, I'm opening up a school in September in Tooting, Michaela Community School, and I'm going to personally do home visits to every single family before we start in September. And I'm doing that precisely because I know some families
It shouldn't be you doing that. It should be a healthcare worker. It should be that they have a family doctor, that they have a healthcare worker helping them. But you guys have made healthcare so bad, it's created so many problems. It's almost fair to say you guys are creating problems by your healthcare system.
Nappies, I haven't got time, I've got 3 other kids, I'm busy, I mean, he still wets himself and he doesn't know how to use a knife and fork. Would you just accept that and say, well, they're busy?
Of course not. Of course
they're
not.
working hard.
Then
it sounds like that is what's happening now.
How do you support them? Sometimes they don't know, so you can put on parenting classes. Parenting classes, often schools are worried
They
about
know,
putting
but
on
they
parenting
cannot
classes
do
because
anything
they don't
about
want
it
to
if their
insult
child
parents.
cannot
But in
control their
fact,
bladder or
what you find
bowel.
is that parents
You
turn
can't
up
force
and
somebody to be able to
they're
control their
desperate for
bladder or
support.
But you see, this
bladder
is
or
what
bowel.
everything that I've written about for the last 6 to 7 years is all
You
about
expect
this,
people
about
just to be
valuing
potty
parenting,
trained
about
and you
giving
say
up
it and you
saying, this
teach
is a
it and then they
really
should be
job.
potty trained.
I
That's
think
not how it
this is
works.
such a culture now.
Particularly, I'd love to be a stay-at-home mum. I'd love to have the time to be at home, but I have to go to work, especially with the economy as it is now. My husband's lost his job.
You've no time to teach your child how to go to the loo.
Well, listen, we are in such a throwaway culture now, and I think that
Don't blame diapers. It's not diapers. You cannot sit there and say it's a diaper's fault.
It is so embarrassing
Because people have incontinence, people have potty training issues without diapers on, without pull-ups on. They soil their pants, pee their pants without the diaper on. So you cannot sit there and say it's the diaper's fault.
I worry that what you're actually doing is, not you particularly, but if we send the message to the class of 35 school children that it's okay to absolve your responsibility and pass it on to someone else.
If we remove diapers completely from society, there still would be people that shit their pants, piss their pants, whatever, because it's not the diaper's fault or the pull-up's fault.
And I think that all those children sitting in that class who know that if little Johnny
You can
comes
blame
in and he's
Pampers
not
and
dry, don't worry,
Huggies and all
someone
those
else will sort
companies
it out.
all you
I'm
want,
not trying to put
Depend,
those children
whatever.
sore.
You can blame all those companies all you want. It still doesn't do anything because even if we didn't have them, which we didn't have them a long time ago, back in the 30s, you still had those same problems going on.
But actually, that kind of hard
Same soiling of pants, pissing pants, pee pants, whatever. We had those issues going on before diapers.
Insisting on high standards in school.
Because you have to be able to control your bladder and bowel, and if you're unable to do that, you have incontinence issues.
You can't come to school yet because your mum or dad haven't taught you how to go to the
That's
toilet.
true, but then it encourages the parents, but you do have to put in some support at the same time so that they know how to do it. And then you insist, you keep your standards high, and the child can then benefit from that. And you build a relationship. You see, I do think children benefit from a coordinated approach between the school and the family.
Certainly.
And
What's the place where they spend most of their
Well, I think
We need an inclusive society, not a divided one, which is what our government and all kinds of these politicians, all they want is a divided society. They want to blame the young generation. They want to blame young people. They want to call people weak. They want to say you're weak if you can't, be tough. Like they want you to be like this tough, aggressive, over masculine person.
Teaching you geography, mathematics, and whatever, and sometimes
They don't like soft people at all. They want you to be a tough person that's over masculine.
teaching them as such. It's about providing an environment at school, at my school in September, for instance, rather than have kind of canteen long tables that they would eat at. They'll have a round table where they sit and they talk to each other. Now, not all children get to benefit from that at home because their parents leave them money for Kentucky Fried Chicken.
But can I make one final point, which is I think we have to be very careful to associate between punishing parents and saying you've been a bad parent, and actually it's the opposite of that. It's giving them a sense of self-worth, and it's giving parents something to feel valuable. It's not about saying you've been a really bad parent. It's about saying, look, why don't you just sort this out with your child? You teach them how to sit around. I know that a lot of them are not going to do that, but so much of parenting and family life seems to be that people just don't have.
You guys spend more on war than helping your poor people. You guys can't even get health care right.
But who's funding it? Most local councils or education.
It was society's losing out if it doesn't fund. That's why I'm saying I think you've got to look upon this different way. I think people underestimate just how lacking some people are out there, whether as individuals, as single parents.
The society in England is really bad with they don't help their poor, they don't help health care, they're only supporting these big global wars all around the world.
Schools do have a very important part to play, but of course what Liz is saying is also right. Everyone has a part to play.
There was a teacher here saying, I currently have 3 incontinent children in my reception class. I have to change them up to 9 times between them, 9 times a day.
It shouldn't be a teacher doing that. It should be a healthcare worker. We had EAs, we had PSWs. I had 2 of them to help me when I was in school. And I was only in diapers part of the time because I could only afford them when I was able to get the money because they're expensive.
One 5-year-old wearing nappies and has to clean up after a child who soiled themselves every day. This is the teacher. She's got a child in her class that has fizzy pop from her baby bottle and her teeth look like black pegs. 5-year-old
because you made pop the cheapest thing you could get, and all the expensive stuff, which is the good healthy stuff, is expensive.
Computers, but can't open or read a book.
Yes,
we have completely lost the plot.
I totally agree with.
I think.
Don't blame technology either.
It's so hard to reverse because, as you're saying, it just goes down one generation to the next to the next. Where has it come from that it's now okay that children are turning up at primary school? They don't know their names. I remember this came out in a report about 4 or 5 months ago.
Parenting classes or teaching?
Oh, I don't object at all to parenting classes.
No, yeah.
There's also parents too that have children just for the sake of getting a check, and they don't really. They're only screwing so they can have that bigger check, and so they do that to get the bigger check, and they don't really care about the kid either. That happens too. There's a lot of that. Where they had like 8 kids, and it was only just to get bigger checks.
And they said, look, why don't you talk to your child? Because I'm big on talking to children.
Single people are suffering really badly.
And her answer honestly was, he doesn't
single
talk to
parents
me, so
too.
I don't talk to him. You know, at that level, and she's one of many people that we have totally
but then that mother
lost.
needs help to learn
She
to
needs
communicate.
a lot of help. A lot of people need a lot of help.
Yes.
It's called being delayed. It's being called disabled. It's being called, and you're creating these disabilities by even denying washroom breaks.
What you're thinking, I'm sure. Who do you think?
All through school, you guys did that.
A bit of both. Love to know what you think. Matt's in the hub waiting for your calls.
And circumcision causes incontinence too. This is why your authoritarian approach will never work. This is unacceptable. Another unacceptable behavior by the teacher. This is unacceptable.
Myth number 3. Using absorbent products such as dry nights pajama pants enables bedwetting. Some believe that using dry nights or bed mats is unhelpful, as your child will never learn to wake up for the bathroom. But as we've learned already, your child is not in control of waking themselves up while in their bedwetting phase. Dry nights provides a comfortable safety net for your child so they can sleep easy. They can also help boost confidence and give some independence back to your child, particularly if they're going to a sleepover.
Tonight, the King 5 investigators reveal what can happen to special education students who are physically restrained or isolated in closet-like rooms, even just a few times.
King 5 Susanna Frame is here with the latest in her series, Back of the Class.
Greg and Lori, we found children suffering from anxiety, depression, and increased aggression, all stemming from isolation and restraints used at school. And in Seattle, we've discovered one elementary school with a pattern of putting their hands on kids with serious consequences for the students.
Before 3rd grade, Isaac, who has autism, was at the top of his class academically. He was popular, had lots of friends and interests, and he liked going to school.
Since then, none of that is true.
It's been 4 years since 3rd grade, the year that changed Isaac's life, but the experience still haunts him.
I used to actually get out and do a lot of stuff now. I'm kind of more of a hermit, play Minecraft all day or other video games. stick inside, don't really leave the house much.
What happened when Isaac was 9? He was transferred to BF Day Elementary in Seattle's Fremont neighborhood. Records show that was disastrous. Isaac was physically restrained repeatedly there for dangerous behaviors such as striking staff and stepping in front of a car.
And I actually walked into a situation where the principal by himself was restraining my son.
But Isaac's mom, Heidi Stuber, says her son was restrained for many other offenses that weren't dangerous.
For really minor things, like making a mean face, or one time he hit a door, another time he got frustrated and threw a pencil on the ground.
A UW psychologist said the repeated physical interventions caused isolation from peers, intense anxiety, and trauma. Isaac is 13 now and suffers from depression. To this day, he's afraid of school and doesn't want to talk about what happened.
What do you remember about being restrained?
Nothing much. Try to like block those memories out and not talk about them. If you don't mind, I'd prefer not to talk about that.
And it's still this bad. It's ruined my son's life. And I don't know if he'll graduate from high school, and we have done everything right. That's how bad it is.
The Stubers aren't alone. Soon after Isaac left BF Day, 10 other special ed families sent this letter to the state asking for help, citing a significant and deeply troubling increase in the use of physical restraint and isolation at the school.
My name's Heidi Stuber.
In 2015, Heidi Stuber testified before legislators in Olympia, urging them to pass a bill to limit the use of isolation and restraint.
When I asked Isaac what he wanted me to tell you, he said, just tell them that putting hands on makes everything worse. I get scared, I get more mad, and I'm afraid of school, and I don't want to go.
It worked. On May 9th, 2015, Governor Inslee signed the bill into law. Isaac was front and center to witness it. Now, restraint and isolation can only be used in a dire emergency when serious harm is imminent.
We were very proud that that was signed into law.
After a new law and a lawsuit filed by Isaac's family that cost Seattle Public Schools thousands of dollars, did BF Day learn or change their ways?
It's still going on.
This school year, Gina Bunster walked into her son's basement classroom at BF Day and witnessed her son Alec, 6 years old and weighing 40 pounds, being restrained not once, but on 2 separate occasions by the special ed teacher.
He was being held this way.
Alec, who also has autism, was restrained for running out of the room. The parents aren't sure how many times it happened. They do know their son was acting differently, anxiety-ridden, and not wanting to go to school.
I'm livid about what they did. There was something that changed. The love for learning became quashed in him.
And it sounds like he didn't want to go to school.
He didn't want to even leave the house. He wanted to stay home.
The new law also mandates schools report incidents of restraint and isolation to the state, and BF Day stands out. In the last school year, most Seattle public schools reported 0 to few events. Not BF Day. They documented 71. In the entire district, only Northgate and Gatewood elementary schools had more.
There's no question in any of the professional fields that the use of restraint and isolation is damaging to children.
Jeanette Cohen is a special ed attorney and one of the region's foremost authorities on children with disabilities.
Even 1 or 2 times of use of physical restraint can cause trauma. And if that's true, then why are we doing it?
Heidi Stuber isn't sure her son will ever recover or finish school or feel any sense of justice.
Justice for my son would start with somebody, just one person from the district saying, we are so sorry for what we have done. We are so sorry that we hurt your child and we did it needlessly, but nobody will ever just admit what happened and say they're sorry.
So Isaac spent 2 years not going into a school building, but now he's back going to a middle school in Seattle, but it is still very tough for him. He told me personally that every single day he gets depressed when he goes to school. As for Seattle Public Schools, they told us BF Day is following the law, and their staff is trained in special techniques to avoid the use of isolation and restraint. So we're not sure, why those numbers continue that way when they have been trained, but that's what's happening.
I get the sense this is not the end of your series.
No, we're definitely following what's going on in Olympia right now, because a lot of people think this comes down to money. We need more money for more training.
Okay.
Thanks, Suzanne.
My son is currently 6, approaching 7. He has not been in school since 2017. He's one of those children that has just been forgotten.
There's a crisis in special education.
Class sizes are about 7 or 8 pupils per class size. We've had 130 referrals for primary placements this year, and we're full.
Not enough spaces, high numbers of exclusions, and cutbacks.
I was a bit strangled the person elect who was deciding to put us in this position.
But this isn't just a story of funding cuts, increasing numbers of children who are being denied an education.
So Bowen has been at the school since primary and moved up this year. He's in year 7. The lights give him something to refocus on when he's distressed or anxious.
Special educational needs and disability provision is split between specialist and mainstream schools, are under considerable pressure. It's estimated that by 2021 there will be a funding gap of £1.6 billion. To gain a legal right to extra support, children have to be assessed for an Education, Health and Care Plan, or EHCP. This used to be called a statement. Last year there were more than 285,000 children with EHCPs in England. But that isn't the whole picture. Not all children with complex needs have a care plan, and applying for one can be a lengthy process, taking months or even years. Finding the right school place is incredibly difficult. Special schools like Ufcombe offer support to children like Balin, who's on the autistic spectrum, but each year there are many more applicants than places.
In our primary provision, specifically year 1 and 2, the class sizes are about 7 or 8 pupils per class size. We've had 130 referrals for primary placements this year.
So what happens to the children that don't make it into this school?
Those children will find another place somewhere else. The local authority has a duty to find that place.
But there are children who don't have places, aren't there?
No, that's true. And your heart goes out to every single one of those children and their families, because whilst we may think we could help this child, we don't and we can't.
So with a shortage of places, just how many children with special needs are ending up without a school? Councils don't routinely publish figures, but by pulling together individual freedom of information requests from the last 6 months, Newsnight has begun to build a picture of hundreds, if not thousands of children with official care plans that just don't have a school place. 164 in Stoke-on-Trent, 93 in Surrey, 348 in Kent. With figures for just a quarter of English councils, we counted 1,580 children with EHCPs who have no education provision. We've found local authorities where hundreds of children with EHCP certificates are waiting for school places. Does that come as a surprise to you?
The numbers are big, so in a way it's not a surprise, but they reaffirm my concern that this actually is, really widespread and there's a lot of children in this situation. These are children who've already been through quite a lengthy process to get a plan in place, but are waiting for the right school to be able to give them the right support. Again, lots of children and parents that I've met that are spending a year, 18 months waiting for that right school, or indeed pinballing between applications to different schools. They won't get that 2 years back in their life. Even if it all comes good in the end, they won't get that 2 years back.
And that's only the children with an official EHCP. They could be the tip of the iceberg. When it comes to children with special educational needs who don't have an official plan, but also not in school, most councils seem unable to provide the figures. Several point out there is in fact no statutory requirement for them to keep a list of children with special educational needs.
What's this? So it's like a magnifying glass.
Alex is 6.5. He's not been to school for 2 years. Diagnosed with autism when he was 2, his mum Rachel spent years trying to get an EHCP assessment. The council rejected her applications. Just weeks after starting at mainstream school without the right provision, he was excluded.
It just became too overwhelming for Alex, and ultimately, within 5 days of being at school full time, I had that phone call that I knew was coming, that we need to talk, there's issues, and that ultimately your son is facing exclusion. He used to write his name and draw and paint, and then following how emotionally traumatic he felt that experience was, he shut down completely. He wouldn't hold a pencil, he wouldn't write.
Do you feel that children like Alex have kind of been forgotten? Are they left behind?
I think they've been purposely squeezed out.
Yeah, I'm gonna have dinner at 6.
Alex now has an official EHCP, and figures from Birmingham City Council show he's one of 66 children with a plan who don't have a school place. But sources told Newsnight that the number of children with special educational needs who are not in school in the city is actually closer to 250, a figure the council says it doesn't recognise. In simple terms, pupils who need specialist help typically cost more than they bring in. Mainstream schools like King's Heath have long subsidised special education and disability support from other parts of the budget, but are now saying things are so tight they may have to close the places of children like Aaron.
We don't want this to happen, but it's gonna happen, and if this doesn't stop, people will get split up from each other, friendships will be broken, and I really don't want that to happen, because I really like my school and what it's doing for me.
You've got 2 children here. How do you feel about the prospect of this school having to close its special needs place?
Angry, frustrated, annoyed, strangled the person next who was decided to put us in this position. Because it's not just this school. I believe it's every other schools which are in the same situation. And this shouldn't happen. I mean, why is it happening? Why pick on disabled people?
Having a child with extra needs brings stresses every day, just to access services, to get equipment, to get wheelchairs. And if you've got a place at a school like this and you know that it's secure and you haven't got to worry about fighting anybody, it just takes that pressure off. It's almost like a little microcosm of the type of society that you want to be, because the kids just accept everything. There isn't too much, nothing's too much of a problem, and everybody's accepting and it's tolerant. And I think actually going out into the world now, it doesn't feel like that.
In April, the government announced additional funding of $350 million for special education. But compare that to the predicted funding gap of $1.6 billion, and it's little wonder the pressure on places is building. As competition intensifies, we squeezed out of sight, and perhaps out of mind.
I spray with my little eye since the beginning with bean.
Oh, is it that bush? It's the middle of the day, and 8-year-old Ronan should be in the classroom. But his mum is teaching him at home now, because she says the school couldn't cope with his autism. Ronan agrees.
It felt sad and unsafe, and it was the worst place in the world.
The worst place in the world. Ronan became frustrated, angry, and the teachers seemed unable to help.
And I got really tired that our concerns were always being dismissed. Made to feel like there wasn't any issues there, but his struggles were very real. For an autistic child, perhaps, that can't sit still because they need to fidget to regulate their emotions, or can't give eye contact because it's actually painful. And so what ends up happening is they get told off. They can even be excluded from their peers or even activities that they've been looking forward to. And that in itself has such a negative impact on a child's mental health and well-being. And we're actually finding that it's caused a fair bit of trauma that we're having to unpick now.
We partnered with one of the UK's largest teaching unions for a survey of primary and secondary teachers in mainstream schools. Only 4% said neurodivergent pupils always get the support to which they're entitled. 43% answered rarely or never. Many put it down to difficulties obtaining assessments of pupils' needs and teachers and staff not receiving the appropriate training. Only 46 may have received specific training on teaching neurodivergent pupils within the last 2 years. 73% told us there aren't enough specialist teachers.
It's really disheartening.
The pressure of working with children with SEN or special educational needs is one of the reasons Jessica left full-time teaching.
You are working so hard to give these children the best opportunities and the best learning opportunities possible, but there's only so much you can do with the training that you've been given, the support you're being given. A lot of classes I've been into when I've been doing supply work, you know, there's 25-50% SEND. That's a lot of children who are going to need IEPs, EHCPs, paperwork, following up with them, and it's draining, it's exhausting.
EHCPs are education and healthcare plans, documents setting out the extra support a child needs. Long waiting lists for assessments and diagnosis lead to delays in funding for schools to provide the help.
Not anger outbursts, but everyone gets angry, do you know what I mean? But
For Dean, who was diagnosed with autism at 10, a lack of support led to overwhelming frustration.
I would always resort to hurting people, trashing classrooms, and even trying to escape school because I just felt like I was so trapped.
At first, he was banned from mixing with others at playtime. By 11, he was spending the whole school day alone in a small room.
I think the last issue was with another pupil, and then